In the autumn of 1855, a 16-year-old boy in Cleveland, Ohio, bought a small red notebook. His father was a traveling con man who sold fake medicine. His family had moved so many times, he barely had a hometown. His first job paid him roughly $3.50 a week. And in that little red book, he wrote down every single cent, what he earned, what he spent, and what he gave away. He never stopped writing. By the time he died, the boy with the notebook had built the largest fortune the modern world had ever seen. By some estimates, larger than the entire annual budget of the United States government. His name was John D. Rockefeller, so pull up a chair, because tonight we follow one small ledger, all the way to $1 billion. Hear that? That's my fire settling in. I'm Daniel Reed, and this is Fireside History, where the greatest true stories of the past are told slowly, clearly, and warmly, so you can enjoy them and grow your English at the same time. Tonight's story has a poor boy, a shameful father, a secret war, and one courtroom defeat that made a rich man twice as rich. Get comfortable. We are going back to 1839. John Davison Rockefeller was born in 1839 in a small farmhouse in upstate New York. And to understand the man, you first have to understand the father. William Rockefeller called himself a traveling salesman. In truth, he was a con man, a person who earns money by tricking people. He sold fake medicines to farmers, vanished for months at a time, and once bragged that he cheated his own sons whenever he could, to make them sharp. The family never knew when he would return, or whether there would be money when he did. His mother, Eliza, was the opposite of her husband, steady, religious, and careful with every penny, because every penny mattered. From her, John learned quiet discipline. From his father, he learned exactly what he never wanted to become. At 16, in Cleveland, John went looking for his first real job. For 6 weeks, he walked the business district in the summer heat, knocking on every door on his list, and every door said no. So he started the list again. On September 26, 1855, a small produce firm finally said yes. Assistant bookkeeper, $3.50 a week by some accounts. For the rest of his life, even as the richest man alive, he celebrated that date every year like a second birthday. He called it Job Day. Picture him now at that desk. A ledger, a book where a business records its money, open in front of him. Columns of numbers, checked and rechecked by lamplight, long after the other clerks had gone home. The work was invisible, the pay was small, but John discovered something at that desk that most people never learn. Numbers do not lie, do not disappear for months, and do not come home drunk. Numbers could be trusted, and he needed something to trust, because the shame of his father followed the family everywhere. Neighbors whispered, debts appeared out of nowhere. There is even a record of young John lending his own father money and charging him interest. At home, he kept his own little red book, Ledger A, and tracked his private world in it. $3.50 in, 10 cents to the church, 5 cents saved. He would keep Ledger A in a vault for the rest of his life, like a treasure, because to him it was one. A clerk with a notebook, earning less in a year than a gentleman spent on dinners. That is where the ladder started. The question was how far up it went. Then, when John was 20, the ground itself changed the story. Oil was discovered in Pennsylvania, and it flooded toward Cleveland in wooden barrels. Chaotic, dirty, and wildly unpredictable. Fortunes were made in a month and lost in a week. Most young men saw a lottery. The bookkeeper saw a ledger with messy columns. Drilling for oil was gambling, he decided. You could never control what came out of the ground. But refining oil, cleaning and processing it, that was mathematics. Costs could be counted. Waste could be cut. Every barrel, every cent, every drop could be entered in a book and improved. So in 1863, with money he had saved dollar by dollar since Job Day, John and a few partners opened a refinery in Cleveland. He was 24 years old. He had found his game. But a game with partners has one problem the ledger cannot solve: people. By 1865, John and his main partner could no longer agree on anything. The partner wanted caution. John wanted everything. So they settled it in the most American way possible. An auction, held privately between themselves, right there in the office. Whoever bid higher would own the company outright. The bids climbed. 50,000, 60, 70. John, 25 years old, kept calmly nodding. At $72,500, a fortune he did not fully have, the other side stopped. The company was his. He later called it the day that determined his career. By the way, if you're enjoying this story by the fire, subscribing to Fireside History is the best way to keep this fire burning. Now, back to Cleveland, because John is about to declare a war. In 1870, he gathered his refineries under one name, Standard Oil, and then he turned his ledger into a weapon. He cut every cost the industry had accepted for years. He built his own barrels, cheaper. He saved the waste other refiners threw away and sold it. And quietly. This is the part his rivals discovered too late. He negotiated secret discounts with the railroads that carried everyone's oil. His product became cheaper than anyone could match. Then he visited his competitors, one by one, opened his books, and offered a simple choice: join me, or compete with this. What happened next is still taught in business schools, and still argued about. In the winter of 1872, in a period rivals later called the Cleveland Massacre, Standard Oil absorbed 22 of the city's 26 refineries. In about 6 weeks, some owners sold gladly, for stock that would one day make them wealthy. Others sold with a pen in one hand and fury in the other, insisting they had been given no real choice. By the early 1880s, by most estimates, Standard Oil controlled roughly 90% of the refining in America. One company, one man's ledger, deciding what a nation paid for light. And then America turned on him. A journalist named Ida Tarbell, whose own father had been ruined in the oil wars, spent years documenting the secret discounts and the crushed competitors, and published it all. The public read every word. Newspapers began calling him the most hated man in America. Crowds jeered his name. Preachers used him as a warning. And in 1911, the Supreme Court of the United States delivered the final blow. Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly, and it would be broken into more than 30 separate companies. The empire of the ledger was ordered destroyed. Everyone assumed the fortune would go with it. Everyone was wrong. Because the man with the ledger had already made a decision most rich men never make. Years before the courtroom, John had quietly stepped back from running the company and turned the full force of his bookkeeping mind to a different column, giving. He approached charity the way he had approached oil, not with emotion, but with system. Do not just feed a man, he argued. Fund the science that ends the disease that keeps him poor. His money built a university in Chicago. It funded the medical research that helped defeat hookworm across the American South, a disease that had drained the region for generations. His philosophy fit in one ledger line, and it is worth keeping. Earn all you can, save all you can, and then give all you can. Now here is the part of the story that even people who know Rockefeller usually get wrong. The courtroom defeat of 1911, the breakup that was supposed to end him, made him richer, much richer. The 30-plus pieces of Standard Oil went to the stock market separately, and investors wanted every one of them. The pieces, it turned out, were worth more than the whole, and John owned his share of each piece. Within a couple of years, His personal fortune reached, by most estimates, around $900 million, at a time when the entire annual budget of the United States government was smaller than that. One retired bookkeeper, on paper, outweighed the treasury of his own country. The pieces themselves grew into names you still see today, companies that became Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron. His defeat became the seed of half the modern oil industry. He spent his last decades giving the fortune away, over $500 million in the money of his time, and handing shiny 10-cent coins to strangers and children as souvenirs. The most hated man in America slowly became one of its greatest givers. He died in 1937, aged 97, still keeping his accounts. Somewhere in an archive today sits Ledger A, the small red notebook of a 16-year-old clerk. $3.50 in, 10 cents to the church, 5 cents saved. Visitors walk past it without a second look, but you know better now. Every empire he built, every hospital he funded, every company that still carries his fingerprints, all of it grew out of the habit inside that little book. Pay attention to small things, every single day, and never stop. And that habit, my friend, costs exactly nothing. It is available tonight, to you, wherever you are sitting. John did not begin with money. He began with a system, a few honest minutes with a notebook, repeated for 80 years. Your English works the same way. 10 new words tonight is a small entry in a small ledger. But entries add up, compound, grow quietly while nobody is watching. Keep the book open. So here is my question for you tonight, and I read every answer. Rockefeller's story has two faces, the ruthless businessman and the greatest giver of his age. Which one defines him? One word in the comments. Ruthless or giver? Let's see which side of the fire you sit on. If this story earned it, subscribe. There is a new chair by this fire every Tuesday and Friday. And next time, we open a very different ledger, the story of a king so wealthy that when he traveled through Egypt, the price of gold itself collapsed behind him. If you haven't heard it yet, it is waiting by the fire. The fire's still warm, and there is always a chair for you. I'm Daniel Reed, and this is Fireside History.